Once upon a time, a fierce warrior lived. He slashed mountains, chopped trees, slaughtered his enemies, and he was a real badass. He looked at his Apple Watch and there was no time left. I'd like to live one peaceful life. And somewhere in another world, there was a boy. He liked to touch the ground with his cheek. And to tell you the truth, everybody beat him up, and beat him so badly that he didn't want to live. He's lying there sunbathing, thinking he'll become stronger and take revenge on all his abusers. And live a peaceful life. Suddenly, a lightsaber appeared out of nowhere. The guy grabs it by the handle. What have you got to lose? I want one more peaceful life. Amidamaru and Harusami and Futsu no Mitama no Tsurugi. Behold the end of the sword. Before the man's mentor died, he bequeathed this request along with the sword to his student. Swinging the sword for over 100 years, this man reached its tip. But it still wasn't enough. In the face of impending death, in the end it was all in vain. Now this warrior regrets a life wasted. He regrets that he lived possessed by a sword. If only I could live a normal life, I wouldn't make the same mistakes, whispered the beaten boy, lying on the ground. Walking up to him, a gray-haired guy asked him what he had just said there. After once again hitting his peer, the bully yelled for him to not even think about being ordinary. He is the child of the woman who destroyed their clan. Stomping the poor boy into the ground, the gray-haired guy yelled that a scum like him should take it as a blessing that he hadn't been banished yet. A prestigious clan that owned a house of poisons and the secret arts of sword-wielding, the Sutong family disintegrated. And the culprit is one of Murim's new forces, which has destroyed some 9 sects in the country. His name was Anjun, the heavenly radiance demon lord. No matter the rejection, if he liked any woman, he would ask her to marry him. And even if she ignored him or said no, he would force her to agree by any means necessary. Such oddities of Anjun affected Sutang's family as well. This time, the poisonous phoenix, Tandina, became the target. Encountering the heavenly radiance of the demonic lord who came after Tandina, the Sutang family fought hard and won. But as a result of they put all of their capabilities into this battle, things changed dramatically. Sutan's family is on the path to collapse. It's evening. Somewhere in the courtyard, the sounds of fighting can be heard. Unable to resist, the boy once again received a powerful fist blow to the face. Raising his hand, the gray-haired guy asked his victim if he was going to faint. He can't do that, as there is still a long road ahead. Hearing this, the beaten boy looked at the bully with hatred. Then, walking up to him, the gray-haired guy asked what the other fierce look was. If he was offended by someone, let him blame his mother. Such merciless beatings this boy lives through every day, because his mother had attracted the attention of the heavenly radiance demon lord and essentially destroyed the clan. The insults and fists rained down on her also reached her son. When the door to the room opened, a concerned woman asked Anmin why he was back so late. But seeing her son's battered face, a poisonous phoenix, Tangdina fell into a stupor of horror. Frightened, the woman ran to her son and asked why his face was like that. Was something wrong? Scratching the back of his head, Anmin laughed and told his mother that he was fine. Unfortunately, the kid never managed to hide the fact that there was clearly something wrong with him. Running up to the boy in tears, Dina shouted that it was clear to her that he was lying. He must have been bullied by the other children. But, trying to calm his mother, Anmin explained that he had just fallen while he was playing with his friends. Holding back tears, the woman stroked her son and asked him to be careful from now on. Abruptly grabbing his mom's hand, the boy said she didn't need to worry about him. After saying that, Anmin let go of his mother's hand and headed to his room. Looking after him, Dina asked her son if he had eaten. But he only replied that he had no appetite and just wanted to rest a little. Entering his room, Anmin lay down on his bed. He knows none of this is his mom's fault. But the boy has no one to complain to. When he raises his voice, he personally affects retribution. That's what happened to Anmin's father. Even if his family left the Tang family, who could protect them, mother and son? Trying not to cry, Anmin realized that things could have been different if his dad had been here. And so the next morning came. The sounds of blows are heard again in the courtyard. Kicking Anmin, the street bully easily felled him to the ground. Laughing evilly, the gray-haired guy asked the small man not to exaggerate the problem. Grabbing him by the hair, the bully explained that this kid shouldn't be making a drama queen out of himself, since they were just starting to have fun. Lifting Anmin off the ground, the gray-haired guy let go of his hair and delivered another fist punch to his face. As he continued to endure the beatings, Anmin tried to figure out how much longer he and his mother would have to live like this. "Guys, this is too much! Leave him alone!" Suddenly heard a woman's voice from behind the hooligans. Holding out some kind of box of needles to her buddies, the girl explained that she had carefully prepared to play with Anmin, so it would be a sin to kill him early. Looking at his friend, the gray-haired guy wondered what she had come up with this time. Taking out a single needle from the box, Tang Yunryong reminded her friends that they were actually going to participate in the upcoming competition for the clan leader position. Showing her buddies one of the needles, the girl offered to try out the poison, which they would then use in a contest. Immediately agreeing with his friend, the bulky man sat on the back of the battered Anmin. Looking at the boy disdainfully, Tang Jongle explained that he could get hurt if he inserted the needle incorrectly. So this little guy should be thankful that his big brother is holding him so tightly. Approaching the immobile Anmin, Yunryong promised not to kill him. Once she's convinced the poison is working, she'll give him the antidote right away. So grabbing the boy by the hair, the mercilessly smiling girl plunged a needle of poison into his neck. Although the guy definitely won't die, Yunryong really wonders what will happen to him when the poison gets into his bloodstream. Noticing the instantly swollen veins, the girl was pleased to note that this boy's skin reacted instantly. Wanting to continue this merciless spectacle, Yunryong asked Anmin to be patient for as long as possible. Soon as it got late in the evening, it started pouring rain. Lying on the ground, Anmin kept trying to figure out how much longer he would have to endure this. His eyes were bloodshot from the poison Yunryong had injected him with recently. Already ignoring the rain, the boy realized that if he just closed his eyes now and died, it would be so much easier. But then who's going to protect his mom? Gritting his teeth in frustration, Anmin began to berate himself for being born so weak. If he was even a little stronger and could stand up to these guys, his and his mom's lives would be very different. It's not like he's asking for much. Anmin just wants to become strong enough to protect himself and his mom. I want to live a normal life. As soon as the desperate boy shouted this and slapped his hand on the ground, some bright, shining thing appeared from nowhere. When Anmin raised his head, he saw something he didn't expect to see. It's a sword, but since when is it here? The strangest part was that the boy had definitely not seen this sword before. That said, it looks very familiar. Getting to his feet, the boy walked over to the sword and grabbed it by the hilt. That's when Anmin realized that this weapon had always belonged to him. The boy had been practicing with this sword for over 100 years. He had reached the peak of his powers. This man has conquered the sword form. He felt the beginnings of this weapon. Eventually, the warrior learned the way of the sword and its limit. All of this work was done just to accomplish one goal. And when the warrior reached that goal, he realized something. The ending came up so empty. Even after reaching the end of the sword, he was unable to stop the approaching death. Before taking his life, this man was filled with regret. If he could live a second life, he would live it like a normal person. And now, clutching that weapon, Anmin remembered absolutely everything. He's a sword master in his past life in Tang'anming right now. As he held onto his sword, he felt all the skill he had achieved as a ruthless warrior. Well, now he won't repeat the mistakes of his past life. This time it will be different. From then on, the warrior would become an ordinary village boy, and Tang'anming would live a normal life. It was the morning of the next day, and the rain had just recently ended. Running out of the house following her son, a worried Dina asked where he was going after coming back from being injured yesterday. Turning to his mom, Anmin asked her not to worry, promising that none of the things she was worried about would happen. Saying this, the boy waved her off and told her he would be back soon. After that, Anmin confidently headed towards the place where he always meets those bullies. Meanwhile, somewhere in the village, looking at Jongle incredulously, the gray-haired guy asked if Anmin intended to avoid them today. Then, the bulky kid remarks that they beat him up pretty badly yesterday. Still, if this kid doesn't want his mother to see him in a sorry state, he'll show up soon, won't he? He's got a lot of guts to come here every day. Gut? What gut? The gray-haired guy asked with a grin. Either way, if that scum shows up here, they'll give him a good beating. And if he doesn't show up, the bullies will just gather all the kids from the village and mock him together. While his friend laughed gloatingly, Jongle saw Anmin approaching. As expected, this boy did show up. Sitting in the tree, Yunryong noticed that he was very late. Jumping to the ground, the girl said that she was beginning to think that this kid wasn't coming and was starting to worry. Waving her hand at the boy, Yunryong asked him to hurry up and come here quickly. Seeing the three of them, Anmin stopped and looked at them seriously. As he approached the boy, the gray-haired fellow remarked that he must have had a rough time. And anyway, how is it that after one night he already looks pristine, even though just yesterday he was brutally beaten? To this, Anmin replied to Munchin that such nonsense simply couldn't hurt him. Such unexpected words greatly surprised the bullies. They certainly did not expect to hear such a response from their punching toy. Scratching his head in bewilderment, Munchin asked why the guy who had been moaning in pain just yesterday was suddenly so bold. So if yesterday wasn't enough for this scumbag, he's gonna need another whack. Approaching the calm boy, an angry Jongle was already preparing to punch him in the face once again. Suddenly, Onmin decided to call out his name for some reason. Then, after looking at Tang Yunryong, he called out to her as well. At what she heard, the girl clapped her hands together joyfully. Pleased that Onmin had called her by her first name, Yunryong wondered why this kid was calling her and her friends by their first names. Could it be that today their dear Anmin wanted to finally die? Looking at Mongchong, Yunryong noticed that yesterday's poison apparently wasn't enough. So why don't they double the dose today? Noticing that the boy was staring at Yunryong and Moonchan talking, the irritated thug swung his fist and asked why the hell he wasn't paying attention to the person standing right in front of him. In the same second, Anmin dodged the blow and grabbed Jongle's face tightly. At this sudden movement, the bulky man went into a stupor. The very next instant, Anmin took a step forward and sealed his opponent with the back of his head into the ground. Looking at this, Munchin and his friend couldn't understand how this could even happen. How come he took Jongle down with one punch? This kid shouldn't be good at martial arts, so how did this happen? Just because you guys are good at something doesn't mean I can't stand up to you, Anmin explained, turning around at the dumbfounded bullies. Just recently, they had said that they were going to participate in the upcoming competition for the clan leader position. Were they going to enter such a prestigious competition with that level of skill? Tensely glancing at the approaching Anmin, Munchin noticed that it was as if he had become a completely different person in just one night. Deciding that now was not the time to panic, the gray-haired fellow realized that Jongle she was momentarily caught off guard. Munchin and his friends have trained for years for the sake of competing, and so they can't lose to someone like this scum. Stabbing at the bully offered to see if the boy would say the same when faced with Munchin's skills. However, Anmin only had enough to extend his arm to stop his opponent's attack. With an eerie look at the gray-haired guy, he clenched his palm and broke the dagger in his enemy's hand. Looking at this boy in surprise, Munchin couldn't realize what he had just done for a while longer. In just a moment, Anmin had already snapped his fingers and spun his opponent around like a drive shaft. If all the participants are on the same level as these guys, the outcome of the competition for the clan leader position is pretty much predictable. The hidden poison room. It was originally where the clan head lived and important family decisions were made. But since the seat of the head had been empty for a long time, this hall became the meeting room of the elders. Here was today's regular meeting. Since everyone was already here, the old man with the beard suggested that we start the meeting. It seems that the number of participants in the competition for the title of young clan head has decreased, and so the elders need to make a final decision regarding Tang Anming, the son of the Poison Phoenix. He hasn't officially announced his involvement yet, but everyone knows he's being openly bullied by other kids. He still doesn't have any accomplishments under his belt, so it's likely that no one would mind if he was eliminated from the competition. Hearing such a suggestion, one of the elders reminded him that this boy had the blood of the former clan head in him. Its exclusion could call into question the legitimacy of the upcoming contest. After thinking for a moment, the bearded elder said that he understood exactly what his colleagues were talking about. But isn't the fact that someone who doesn't know martial arts will lower the level of the competition a big problem? Even though the former head's blood runs in this guy, he's just a burden on the whole family now, isn't he? As soon as the old man with the beard said this, the door to the hidden poison hall suddenly swung open. Seeing the man standing on the doorstep, the other elders were greatly surprised. Tang Anming himself showed up at the hidden poison hall right in the middle of the meeting. Looking irritated at the boy, the elder with the beard asked if he realized what he was doing now. Thanking the old man for his concern, Anmin replied that he was fully aware of his actions. After these words, the boy moved closer to the elders, surprising them even more. In his hands, he was holding the beaten Yunryong by her hair. Lifting the girl a little higher, the boy showed her face to all the elders. Anmin revealed that he had experienced a bit of oppression from the Tang family during all this time. Now he's sick of it all, and he's not going to take it any further. Seeing the face of the beaten Yunryong, one of the elders panicked and shouted that this kid had no right to hurt a child who was competing to be the young clan head in such a way. Doesn't this kid know he's committing a serious crime? Shutting up the infuriated elders, Anming said that he was well aware of the Tang family's rules. But fighting between the contestants was not forbidden. Looking at this child perplexedly, the elders of the family tried to understand what he was even carrying. An old man with a gray beard stood up from his seat and asked the boy what he had just said. Did he mean to say that he was really going to compete for the position of the young clan head? Looking at him coldly, Anmin clarified, wasn't his involvement enough to get things started? Still not understanding what the boy was talking about, the old man asked what he meant. Anmin in turn advised the elders to check the area outside the main hall. Minchon and Jonggul had bullied the boy before, and so he simply followed one of the clan's rules. Return kindness twice and revenge tenfold. After the guy finished his speech, there was a sepulchral silence in the meeting room. Slamming his fist on the table, the old man with the beard said that Anmin had proven his worth and appeared to be willing to participate in the competition. However, one of the elders shouted that this was unacceptable. This kid is just using the exemption for serious crimes granted to the contestants. That's right, regardless of legality, it puts other participants at risk. But the old man with the beard just shut everyone else up with one wave of his hand. The elders are obliged to give this boy the right to compete. This decision surprised everyone else in the meeting room. Pounding the table, the old man with the beard explained that since this child spoke so confidently, there was no point in stopping him. Why limit the law to a born and able child who wants to participate? In addition, the elder hoped that Tang Anming's confidence matched his skills, and unless he ends up becoming the young head of the clan, in which case he will pay for what happened today. Already when Anmin returned home, his mother asked how he could have pulled something like that. Not only that, he also decided to enter the competition to become the young clan head. To this, the boy confidently replied that it was necessary. When Dina heard this answer, she was surprised at how decisively her son said it. It was clearly not just a tantrum or a whim. Anmin is a name that means survive as long as you can. Dina thought he was just a child. But now the woman realizes that a magnificent man stands before her. Taking her son's hands in hers, Dina promised she wouldn't ask where he'd learned all these techniques, or how he'd outperformed not one, but 3 children at once. But she only wants to know the answer to one question. Is her son sure about the competition to be the young clan leader? With a confident smile, Anmin reminded his mother who he was. This child is the son of the Poison Phoenix. As soon as her son said that, Dina almost cried. She hugged the boy and told him that he had really grown up a lot. Dina was incredibly proud of him. It's so warm in her mom's arms, and so Anmin will continue to protect her regular life. And even if someone decides to disturb it, the guy will destroy everyone. Everyone, without exception. And so it's been a whole month since that day. Walking alongside her sister, the ash-haired man suggested she leave it at that. Competing to be the young clan head was not a child's game, and she should know it well. Every moment is worth its weight in gold. But the woman walking beside him asked her brother to let this boy continue to develop. He must have his reasons. As you could tell, he wasn't the kind of kid who would act without a plan. Definitely, his mindset, courage, and composure are incredible for a kid his age. And the great clan head of the Dark King clan, Tang Chokwi, can't disagree with that. But be that as it may, the attitude that Anmin is now showing this guy is unacceptable. Glancing at her brother with a smile, Dina wondered if he was worried. Until now, the man and the Dark King's clan had protected Anmin and even cared for him before the competition. That was why the woman was very grateful to them for that. Chokwi, in turn, remarked that the situation this boy had created was so serious that the head of the Dark King's clan had to intervene. Now he couldn't help but have high hopes for Anmin. Except, is it really okay for this guy to train with everyone else? For the entire past month, Anmin hadn't been doing much. He ate fresh meals cooked by his mom and slept a lot. The boy also meditated to correct the distorted paths of ki. Right now, there was simply no need for him to refine his strength and skills. Someone like Anmin, who had awakened memories and skills from a past life where he had reached the level of Swordmaster, could try out what he was about to show at any time. Right now, however, it's much more important for a guy to strengthen the vessel that contains that power, the body. At such a small age, only 12 years old, the meridians and pathways of the body are not yet heavily clogged. As Anmin's level increases, naturally there will be a transformation, or differently rebirth. But even then, the foundation, whose role the body fulfills, will be vital. Right now, the boy needs to focus on the nutrition and rest necessary for physical growth to maintain balance. The balance in this is in the sense of arm and leg length. That'll be enough for now. After a few more days of such training, the day of the contest came. Saying goodbye to his mom, Anmin said it was time to go. Seeing her son off, Dina asked him to take care of himself. Bowing to his sister as well, Chokwi promised to keep an eye on her son. After saying goodbye to her, the head of the Dark King clan told the boy to follow him. Waving at the two of them, Dina remembered her late husband, Anlin. Their son has grown up so much, and the only thing his mother regrets is that Anlin doesn't see it. A few hours later, the Dark King's hall. Looking around, Anmin realized that it looked like he had come too soon. The Dark King's clan leader has left for a showdown over the competition. Looks like the guy has about another half hour or so before it starts. Chewing on a rice cake, the boy heard someone call out to him. Upon seeing the Poison Phoenix's son, the group of guys remembered that this was the dude who had beaten up Munchin. With a smirk rather than a sneer, it was probably just a false rumor. This kid wasn't even capable of learning martial arts. But why is he participating in the same competition as those who had tirelessly honed their skills for years? This only means that the level of competition in place of the young clan head has simply collapsed. Deciding to work on disciplining these guys a bit, Ammon threw some sort of thing at their leader's face. Seeing that their commander had passed out, the rest of the contestants realized that this cocky kid had suddenly used a concealed weapon. But when they saw what kind of concealed weapon the boy was using, they were stunned. In fact, it's not a hidden weapon at all. It's just an under-eaten rice cake. How did this guy manage to throw something like that with such force? Realizing that they couldn't just leave this kid behind, one of the bullies reminded his comrades that there were only 2 of them around Munchin. But now, there was a pretty big group here. Then, coming from the steps, Anmin reminded the boys that Munchin and his group had been defeated in a matter of seconds. So now the guy offers his opponents to feel the real pain on their own skin. But before they start attacking, Anmin decides to tell them that Moonchan didn't run away even with a broken arm. Well, these guys, being competitors, will certainly fight to the end, won't they? Realizing how dangerous this kid was, all the participants immediately pounced on him in a crowd. However, the battle ended before it could begin. As Anmin palmed one of his attackers away, Chokwi, who was walking nearby, saw a guy flying past him. Looking at him in surprise, the man noticed that this child was a contestant. Frightened for the participants, the Dark King clan had rushed to their aid, thinking that something was wrong. Running up to the boys, Chokwi asked what all the commotion was going on here. But looking around, the man saw only unconscious participants lying there. Taking a bite of the rice cake, Anmin was surprised that his uncle had already arrived. Sitting on the crowd of defeated opponents, the boy complained to Uncle Chokwi that he was getting bored waiting. Then, looking at the head of the Dark King clan, Anmin smiled happily and asked his uncle not to misunderstand him. These guys were the first to attack, and it was all just the consequences of using self-defense.
Pet the cat.